All right, we are recording. Welcome everyone to the 17th episode of Dear Dr. Fantasy. And it is an incredible honor and pleasure for me to have here as my guest today, the one and only Merphy Napier. Hello, Merphy.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And an extra thank you, actually, because you do have a little one who is slightly under the weather. And I know as a parent how difficult that can be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate it very much. And my thanks to Corey as well for looking after her while we're having this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. It's been interesting because this is our first time. We adopted her 9 months ago. This is our first time with her sick since we've had her. So we're like a little bit extra cautious.
I do remember the first sickness with the first child, and it's nerve-wracking. It really is. And you're all constantly questioning, am I doing something wrong here? Do we have to go to the doctor now? And
right. So, exactly.
Yep. But I do wish you the best with that. And
thanks.
I hope she'll be
She's
fine.
doing well. She's a trooper.
Good. So, well, we are here to talk about books, of course. And one of my standard questions for my guests is to find out about their reading journey. So on the principle that you are what you read, if you don't mind talking about some of the highlights of your journey with stories and wherever you want to go with that, I'm ready to listen.
Absolutely. So a funny thing, my mom always would say that I was like a crazy kid, like way too energetic, way too loud, a tornado. And until I learned to read. And then once I learned to read, I was like the easiest kid in the world. Yeah. So I as soon as I learned to read, it was all I wanted to do. And for me, when I remember young grade school, it was Ginny B. Jones, it was Goosebumps, those books, the anchor books. And in middle school, it was Harry Potter. And then in high school, it was Aragon.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So kind of like exactly the age range that I was supposed to be in. Yeah. And then I actually, after high school, I fell out of reading and it was just, just super depressed and stopped reading and like everything. It was an interesting time in my life. And came back to reading later. And it was so interesting because I was so focused on school and I was so focused on, a lot of different things that I didn't realize how much losing my favorite hobby affected everything. Yeah. So I discovered BookTube, started picking up books again. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've been missing a piece of me for years. Yeah. And I was reading books. I was watching videos on those books. It was at a time when BookTube was very full of review videos. And so I was watching all the review videos and I was like, I want to talk back. So I eventually made my own channel so that I could discuss more.
Which turned out to be a really good choice.
It ended up being great for me. Yeah. It was, and it's being able to not just have this kind of like contained list of what to read, but being able to get comments of more recommendations and personalized recommendations. You loved this, you hated this, try this. Really helped me to discover what I loved reading, which has been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. You talked about feeling depressed when you were at a period in your life when you weren't reading for pleasure. Yeah. This might sound weird, but I experienced something similar as a PhD student in English literature. Right. And of course, I loved what I was studying, but I was never reading for pleasure, just for pleasure. And at a certain point, I realized I need to read for just to let my brain have a great time and get immersed and absolutely all of that. I think we need that, don't we? We really do.
Yes, absolutely. And I was one of those kids that actually read my assigned books and I loved it. I enjoyed it so much, but being forced to analyze a text based off of what you have to discuss versus analyzing a text based off of you want to dig into it because it's so good. It's a very different experience.
And what I find interesting, one of the things I find really cool about BookTube, which I didn't know anything about when I started a channel. I was so naive. I thought, hey, I bet nobody's talking about fantasy on YouTube. I'll do something really different.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I quickly discovered there was lots of great channels out there. And but one of the cool things that I love about BookTube is that you have the type of analysis that you might do in a classroom. You can do that here. You have people talking about narrative perspective and talking about whether characters are flat or round, and you talk, whatever, that's here. But you also have this enthusiasm that you don't, unfortunately, typically see in a classroom, where people, we're here because we love these stories.
Oh yeah.
And we yearn to talk to other people about our experiences with these stories and connect with other people. So it's about that community too, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I discovered, because I thought, oh, I'll just, talk about books like I do in a classroom and analyze them, and it'll be nice for my students. And then I discovered, wow, there are all these people and they love what they're doing here, and they love books, and they love talking about them. And it doesn't have to always be academic style analysis, but I love that it can be, and it can blend with all this other stuff. And it just feels like the right place. It feels like
absolutely
great space for that.
Do you feel like the way you analyze has changed since you started BookTube?
Yeah, I do, actually. The way I teach has changed, actually.
Really?
Yeah. And this is something I'm very grateful for. I feel like I'm more comfortable in the classroom, even though I've been at it for 25 years or so.
Sure.
But I do feel more comfortable in a classroom, having had all these discussions. And I feel like I'm a little bit better at relating to my students as well, because I'm thinking about my conversation partners, and I'm listening to them, and I'm learning from them, just like I do with my students too. So it's a wonderful supplement to what I do in a classroom. I've never been able to separate my classroom life from what I do here, from my writing. For me, it's all just sort of the same, comes from the same places of inspiration. But yeah,
that's cool. Your whole life, your hobby and your profession that you aspire, all of that is kind of like, it's all in the same area. You're just ingrained in literature, which is really cool.
Yeah, precisely. It's true. It's worked out pretty well for me. So you started a channel basically, as you said, because you wanted to be part of the dialogue. Is that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I grew up with readers. All my friends were readers. Yeah, absolutely. Well, most of my friends, but yeah, I had everything I read. It was like groups of people all getting together and discussing those books. And I had the best discussions. And I think that's a big part of why when I moved away, and I was, it kind of feels like you're starting over a lot of times when you enter a new chapter of your life. And I didn't know that many readers, and reading has never been a solitary hobby for me. So when it became solitary, I kind of just lost it. And I started picking up other hobbies that I have other hobbies, but it wasn't the same. And BookTube, it was like, I got to bring back the community aspect of it. And it was like, reading isn't as fun solitary.
Yeah. I mean, that's what excites me about being in a classroom too. But the difference with YouTube is you're talking to an audience of thousands of people.
It is, yeah.
Right. And you have international reach. You have people all over the world.
Right.
And they're engaging. And you mentioned it in a video of yours that I watched recently, how much you learn from people in the comments. It's tremendous. It's wonderful. And
absolutely.
Other creators out there, when you have the opportunity to sit down with them and talk about all the stuff that you love. So
yeah, you get so many perspectives on a single story. And it's so interesting because you've got this one interpretation of the text, and it's like, this is what the book is doing, right? And then you put it out there, and then people add to that. They add layers to it, or they add contradictions, or they say, what about this? And it's like, oh, this book is so much richer than I ever knew. Which makes reading also, the discussion is fun, but it also makes me appreciate books so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned, to get a little more specific about some of these books, you mentioned Harry Potter and Aragon, and I envy you because you are, I think am I fair in saying that you're in the Harry Potter generation? Is that
Oh,
okay?
Yeah. I'm 30. Or
yeah. So there you go.
Yeah. So
perfect. Yeah.
I was each book release, I think it was like book 3 or something that I started when they were out, and like each book release, it was like, this is a big deal. Same for Aragon. Me and my friends, we would read them the second they came out, and one friend would read that chunker of a book in like a day. It's like impossible. It was just, it was like the Marvel movie hype is what I had with my book friends.
Oh, that's great. And that freedom with which we immerse ourselves when we're kids, I think that's another thing that we sort of can regain later on. Here on BookTube. It's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful
absolutely
thing. And healing and important for our mental health, I think, as well.
Yes,
but I do envy you that because I'm a little older. I'm 50. So
yeah, first time I heard you say that, I was like, no, it's not true. It's not possible.
I'm afraid it is. But I have daughters. And so I got to experience Harry Potter and Aragon vicariously in a way. I mean, I read Harry Potter along with them, and it was wonderful. It was great to experience it that way. I know I've actually watched some of your Harry Potter content on your channel before. Yeah. I only have one video, but it's with my younger daughter. Where
that's so sweet.
It was a lot of fun because the Harry Potter journey for me really is inseparable from experiencing it with my daughters. So it was very special for me. She won't get in front of the camera now because she's a teenager.
Sure.
But I caught her, at age 12, just before. So it worked out pretty well. But we have one video where we talk about Harry Potter, and I think it was my second or third video I made, actually.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, it was fun. I was being a wee bit goofy, but that's okay. And I think she doesn't mind too much.
Yeah. My kiddos they're 5 and 3. So my son's learning to read and he's doing great, but it's still just me reading to them. And it's still, very small books, but we started Magic Treehouse books. Nice. And it's so fun. It's so fun to read stories with your kids. And to kind of impart that, look at this adventure we get to take together kind of excitement.
No, it's one of the biggest joys in my life was definitely reading to my girls. And I was pretty merciless. I started reading The Hobbit to them when they were very small.
That's wonderful.
Although my older daughter will still tell people how I traumatized her by bringing her to see Lord of the Rings when she was 4.
Oh, no.
Might not have been the smartest parental decision ever, but
a little bit intense for a 4-year-old.
It was a little intense. But that was the older one. It was, you're experimenting a little bit and you're learning along the way.
Sure.
So poor thing. But she's okay. She's okay today. She's okay.
Did you succeed in making a fantasy nerd out of her?
I did. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, she and her sister both. They the younger one actually read Lord of the Rings as well, and so yeah, they're definitely. My younger one was big on Harry Potter and also the Percy Jackson books. She loved those. Really loved those. And she got really into Greek mythology and all that stuff too. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun being a reader, but maybe even better is being the parent of a reader.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but we have some other series that you and I have read at an older age that we both love, and I'd love to get your thoughts on those. Some of them being Lord of the Rings, which we just mentioned. You're also a First Law fan, I believe, and
yes.
Gentleman Bastard sequence. You're a big fan of that series, and that's one I love. When I first started the channel, I made several videos because I didn't know what I was doing. So I just said, why don't I make videos about all the fantasy series that I think are really good, like really good. So I titled every single one, Why blank is among the best fantasy.
Yes.
So one of them was Gentleman Bastard Sequence.
I'm so glad. I knew you liked it. I didn't know it was like in your best list. Is it still in your best list years later?
Yeah, well, I sort of cheated. My first top 10 list, it was there. And then my second top 10 list, it was like, I have too many series. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to say right from the beginning, I still love these, but these are unfinished series. And I still recommend you read them. But I'm not going to include unfinished series in this particular top 10. And
sure,
some people called me out on that, and but it's okay. It was a little bit of a cheaty way to sort of include more books in the video.
Sure.
Which is, it's hard. Those top 10 things are really, people don't understand how rugged those are to make.
Oh, they really are. They really are. At some point, I'm just like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Whatever I say is going to be fine, because it's like you can agonize over the ordering or what doesn't make the cut and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Gentleman Bastards is my ride or die. It's like I push it on everyone.
Great. And I do think I heard recently that Scott Lynch is coming out with a novella. Is that right?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. And he's actively working on book 4 as well. I think he wants it to be 7 books though. So,
that's what I heard.
It'll be a while.
Yeah. Well, he is so talented, and
he is,
a wonderful character writer, in my opinion, with and everyone will cite the relationship between Locke and Jean as one of the greatest friendships in all of literature, not just fantasy. I mean, it's just
you're saying all the right things.
Yeah. I mean, it's so well done. It's really beautiful, I think.
I almost said thanks as if I had anything to do with that. I'm just like that invested that I'm thanking you for liking it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's good stuff. I mean, it's great stuff, really. So I really, as a fan, I do hope that I wish him all the best, and I hope that he'll feel comfortable writing the rest of that series. I would love to see 7 in all those books for sure.
Me too.
Yeah. So, but more recently, you've been getting into Malazan, right?
I have been. So, it's been a lot. It's been so good, but it's been a lot, Philip.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. And I can say that as somebody who read the Malazan Book of the Fallen before I knew about BookTube. And the first thing I said to myself was, wow, this is brilliant. And the second thing was, I think I have to read this again.
Yeah.
So, it was not something that I would wish on someone to experience alone. And this is a great thing about BookTube, is that we're able to read these wonderful series and talk to people about them, which is why my second time around reading the Malazan Book of the Fallen has been, and I'm not shy about saying this, I've said it before, it's been the most profound literary journey of my life. It has been just absolutely mind-blowingly sublime. And a lot of that is because I've been reading it with people, talking about it with people, principally my friend AP Canavan, who has the channel Critical Dragon, who happens to be also the advanced reader for both Steven Erikson and Ian Esselmont.
No way.
Yeah. So, and this is a guy who knows stories so well that Steven Erikson and Ian Esselmont are like, will you please read my books? Tell me what you think. And he's that good. So AP is, he is a developmental editor, and he's immensely talented and fun, and just a great guy. So I've been reading the books along with him. In fact, I just finished reading The Crippled God and A Sail, which A Sail is the 6th book in Esselmont's Novels of the Malazan Empire, which is the concurrent series. So that has been just tremendous. And we've talked to both authors several times because, well, it helps that AP is friends with them.
Right.
So I've had a chance to talk to Steven Erikson and Ian Esselmont as well. And of course, that's been enriching too.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So at this point, I'm just like, this is the best. This is the best experience of my life with literature, with stories. And there's just so much to Malazan. I had the experience when I was 12 or so reading Lord of the Rings, and it brought me to tears. And I thought to myself, wow, I would love to be able to do this. And that's something you seek, I think, when you encounter, maybe it was Harry Potter for you or whatever, but you encounter a series and it just has such a profound impact on you that you're seeking that out, right?
Yeah.
It's a door to a world, and you keep wandering in that world looking for that experience again. And Malazan delivered that experience again to me. Just sublime stuff.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and I watched your review of Memories of Ice.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah, and I looked at your other Malazan stuff so far too, and I'm really, really impressed with your thoughts so far. Absolutely, yeah.
Oh man, well, thanks.
I can say confidently that I wish I had grasped that much when I was reading Memories of Ice.
Really? I feel like I'm not even getting half of it.
Oh, well, I wasn't, I can tell you that. But that's okay, I think. So with Malazan, it really is what hurt me the first time I read it was trying to master this mentality.
Oh, sure.
I kept going back to the character list and the maps, and I have to know what this is and that. And
right.
Didn't allow myself to really be immersed in the experience. And if I have any regret at all, and I really don't, but it would be that I should have just relaxed a little bit while I was reading it the first time. But you're feeling the confusion at times, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, and the confusion doesn't bother me. I'm very much like I'm an open-handed reader, where it's like, if I don't understand something, then I know that I'll eventually get it, or I won't. And okay, like it doesn't really, I'm not fussed over it. My thing is that immersion is what I read for, like Erikson is such a vivid writer, in landscapes, in people, in scenes that he's portraying, and in emotion. He's such a vivid writer. And that's one reason why I connect with the series so hard, is because he takes me everywhere that he wants to take the reader, and he does it so well. Action, torment, thrill, extreme highs, and absolute devastation. He takes us through all of it, and he writes it so well. So here I am, a very immersive reader. Like, if I can forget where I'm standing while I'm reading, then I've read right. And he takes me through so much.
Yeah.
So the overwhelming side of the series isn't necessarily how wide it goes, because I don't care if I miss stuff, as long as I understand what I need to understand. What I find so overwhelming about the series is emotionally what it takes me through.
Yeah. Because
I'm a very emotionally invested reader, and I think that he handles things very well, but he takes me through so much. And so I just got to take a break. I just got to take a break between books.
I think you're wise to do so. Actually, I am getting more and more sentimental as I get older. Ever since my older daughter was born, I just have a hard time not crying on certain. And I can honestly say that Steven Erikson has made me cry. And I'm going to take it up with him at some point.
Just the once? He's just made you cry the once?
Well, he's made me cry more times than any other author, actually. So this last time reading the Malazan Book of the Fallen, I cried during Dead House Gates. I cried during Memories of Ice. I cried at the end of House of Chains. I did not cry with Midnight Tides. So there was one book I got a break. But I cried a ton in The Bone Hunters. I cried in Reaper's Gale. I cried in Toll the Hounds. I cried in Dust of Dreams, and I bawled my eyes out in The Crippled God. There's stuff from the first few books that has payoff in the last book, and it's just so incredible how he did that. I mean, I'm getting a little emotional even thinking about The Crippled God right now, because just such an impact. So I think you're making a good choice in giving yourself space to say, okay, I need to read a few other things now. So
yeah, I've been reading several, oh my goodness, and it's been an accident, but I've been reading several books this year that really focus on, in war there's a winner, but on an individual sense, really nobody wins. Everybody comes away broken. And I've been reading a lot of those books this year accidentally, and it's just, man, it's been really impactful to just have that close examination of the failings of humanity, the hardships of war, how our hardships shape us. And he's definitely in that list of ones that have really made me think.
Yeah. I mean, he's talked a lot about some of his inspirations for that side of the Malazan series, like Glenn Cook, for example, who is a Vietnam War veteran who wrote The Black Company. So a lot of that rapport that you get in Malazan between the soldiers, you see something similar in The Black Company, but not just fantasy books, but other war veterans who've written, like Tim O'Brien,
Sure.
The things they carried and all of that, with an incredible simultaneously, and humor is really important to Malazan. You perceived that. It is really important because it could be overwhelming to have these tragedies piling on each other. And there are certain moments where you just need a release valve. You need to deal with it somehow. And that's in Malazan.
Absolutely.
The humor there is just wonderful.
It's so good. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. I mean, there's some really great moments in all the books, really. And you're going to see when you eventually get to some of the future ones, how that humor does carry the books too. It's just wonderful. But there's for example, without getting too specific, because we have to avoid spoilers here, but in Dead House Gates, there's a moment with Coltane when he tries to promote a sapper, and it turns into quite a comical situation.
Yes.
And there's this whole dialogue about sleight of hand, and how, this whole dialogue with two of the characters beforehand who are witnessing this promotion, how they're dealing with the tragedy unfolding before their eyes. And the one says to the other, it's sleight of hand, and that's how we deal with it. And then the comical situation unfolds, and you get the demonstration of sleight of hand.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. And there's even characters too, like, I don't know if it would be a spoiler to even talk about. There's even characters that every time they're on the page, it's just like, it's hilarious. It's done in a way that's, I don't think it takes away from the impact of anything. Like he balances the two so well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Midnight Tides is the one where I feel like you can most see that. That's book 5. And that's the one that will take you to an entirely new continent.
Oh no.
Yeah. Because you've been going back and forth with books 1, 2, 3, and 4, but you get to see a whole new continent in book 5. But that's the one where I feel is the most, and people use this word a lot when they talk about Stephen Erikson's writing, but that's the one that's the most, to me, Shakespearean. Because in a Shakespeare, even tragedy, you get this back and forth with really serious, philosophical, tragic stuff, and really just humor, And in Midnight Tides, you can really see them juxtaposed. You'll see when you get there, but they're very clearly in the beginning, in the first half especially, very clearly juxtaposed and very deliberately, and then they gradually blend together. And it's just, he does something different with the structure of every one of these books, and it's always something compelling and something that adds to the experience of the book. So yeah, I think you're in for a treat.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think I'm going to read the 4th book before the end of the year, at the very least start it, because I feel like, especially after 3, I'm very, very invested.
Yeah. I mean, that's where you think people tend to know Memories of Ice. I feel like if you loved Memories of Ice, there's a very good chance that you're going to have some more highs on the way. Put it that way. And some of those, I watched your review, and I can promise you that some of the threads that you discussed in your review, you're going to see major payoff from those threads, and you might not even see them coming. But yeah, it's really beautiful stuff. And it's just all of life somehow thrown into this series.
Yeah.
Just the human experience, really.
Yeah. So. I've been very grateful to the Malazan fandom as well. Great group of people. I've had a very good experience. If I misunderstand something, or if it's something that I should understand by now and I've missed, like they're so happy to explain stuff, and so excited to just get another perspective, just get another person talking about it.
Yeah.
I have encountered a lot of fandoms in my time, and a fandom,
sure you have. Yeah.
a fandom can ruin a series for me because I'm here for the discussion. So if the people I'm talking to aren't fun, I'll find something else. Yeah. And the Malazan people are fun.
Yeah, I love the Malaz tubers. We call them not booktubers sometimes, but Malaz tubers,
right?
Or even woo tubers, which is really an inside thing. But you'll understand that eventually. I can't. It would be a spoiler for me to explain.
It's okay.
But Malaz tubers are a bit like sappers. I think they're kind of a wacky bunch who kind of do their own thing.
Yeah.
So there's quite a wonderful collection of people who are devoted to the series and love talking about it. And I hope that they would count me among them. So it's just yeah, like you say, for me too. When I first started the channel and I made one video, like I told you, I made all these videos, like why whatever is among the best. I made one for Malazan too. And I got such a wonderful response from the people who love that series. This was at a time when it's changed a lot. So 2.5 years ago, when I started, there weren't a lot of people talking about Malazan on YouTube yet. And there were some for sure, but we've reached a point where there's a lot more now. And it's a very well-served series, at least the Malazan Book of the Fallen is on YouTube. So I'm glad to say that there's been a lot out there. So it's really wonderful. And the Malaz tubers have done a lot.
I will say in my comment section on my Malazan
either way, it's fine.
videos, I always get recommendations of, okay, go watch this person's videos or this person's videos, because they really help break things down. And yours is a name that comes up a lot. So I think the community, I think the community really appreciates what you bring to it.
There are a lot of kind people there, and I have to give credit again to AP because it's a partnership. And I'm proud to say that I had some role in him starting his channel, because I dragged him into this whole Malazan read. There's a lot to unpack with Malazan, and some things, if you just read the Malazan Book of the Fallen, you won't know because the questions are answered in Esselmont's series, Novels of the Malazan Empire. That's just how it is, because it's a shared world. And while they did kind of end up dividing their spheres to some extent, there are definitely characters who appear in both series, and some that you mentioned even in your most recent video.
Oh, really?
I'm watching the video, I'm thinking, oh, if she wants to know that, she's gonna have to read Novels of the Malazan Empire.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, for me, I love Esselmont's books too, and in and of themselves, but they also are enriching of my experience of the Malazan Book of the Fallen at the same time. So it's really wonderful how that has worked out. And you don't have to read all the books by them. They're getting close to 30 books now with their new series.
They're big books too.
And they're not little books, although Erikson wrote some novellas and stuff too, but mostly they're pretty big books. Esselmont's are a bit shorter though, for the most part. But so lots of exciting stuff happening for you reading wise, but definitely one of the things I've noticed you've been talking about more and more is some manga.
Yes.
And I have been, let's say, getting some encouragement from some of my viewers to try out manga. And that is something that I'm very much open-minded about. I know there's a difference between American comic books and manga. I'm aware enough to know that. I was a comic book kid. I loved comics, and I collected them in the late 70s and early 80s. And I still have a soft spot for Marvel, and I like DC too. I'm not like a purely Marvel person, but I did do more Marvel than DC. But I've been intrigued, let's say, by manga, and I've noticed that you've gotten a lot out of some of your recent engagement with manga. Yeah, and I would love for you, if you don't mind, if you could think of it as a sell or just I'm a very friendly audience. So if you don't mind telling me a little bit about, maybe you could give me a sense of where I should start as well. Yes. I would really appreciate it.
I have a recommendation tailored to you, and it's a series that I'm still actively reading. So I would, if you pick it up, I'd love to discuss it with you.
Okay.
It's called Vinland Saga.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it. Now, when you say Vinland Saga, because I'm a medievalist.
I know you are.
Old English and Old Norse.
I know you did.
Of the Icelandic saga, Vinland Saga.
do you know that it's not a historical text, but it's based on real historical figures and times? Yeah. So it's
cool.
It's Vikings in Iceland fighting England.
Nice. So Erik the Red and all that, and
say
Erik the Red and all that, or
So Leif Erikson.
Leif Erikson.
Yep. He's in this.
Cool.
And Askeladd, I'm trying to remember what his real name was. It was like Askeladdin or something like that. Do you recognize that name?
I'll have to look that up.
I'm not as well versed in
the
all of this, as you are, but I know that. Didn't you even like study Norse language or something?
I did, yeah. So for my dissertation, I had to learn Old Norse.
Okay. Yeah. I'm telling you, I just think you'll love it. Just based off of what I know of you individually, I think that you will love it. Because not only, it's one of those stories that I was talking about that's like, good, write it down. One of those stories like Malazan, where not as far as the breadth of it, it's a much more self-contained story. But as far as it saying, listen, we're not following the good guys and the bad guys. We're following a war. And, and it's these complex characters that actually Askeladd is easily one of my favorite villains I've ever read, because he's charming and he's smart and he's personable and charismatic, and he will kill someone and tell them why what he's doing is fine. Like he'll convince them, like he just commits these atrocities, but can rationalize and justify anything he does. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And you'll look at a situation and you'll hear his spiel about that situation, and it'll make you have to step back and be like, okay, what do I think? And there's a lot of stuff in that series that's like, makes you kind of step back and be like, let me take a second to think about this, Yeah. So good. It's so good. I think your history loving heart will love it. I think your analytical mind will love it. I really think you're gonna, and plus it's just like, it's a fun series.
Cool. I mean, it sounds like a winner to me, because as you say, there's the Old Norse there. So I'm going to take you up on that. I am going to buy Vinland Saga and start reading it. And
awesome. Yeah. I'm so excited.
Absolutely going to give it a shot.
I would love to discuss it with you. I think you'll really enjoy it.
I'm there. Yeah, I'm absolutely there. Yeah.
So with manga, you read back to front.
Yes.
Right to left.
So my daughter has let me know that much.
Okay.
And I will be fine with that, I think. Old dogs can learn new tricks. So I will learn to read from right to left. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited. As I say, I think my comic book background will serve me well, although I know it's not the same.
Sure.
But I do think that I'm open to storytelling that engages through words, but also through the visual component. And that's something you talked about in your recent video, which I found very helpful, actually, about books versus manga. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I really appreciate, which came across so beautifully in your video, was how much you love both mediums. That it was clear to me that you're getting as much from manga as you do from books. And at the same time, you recognized, I think, in the course of the video, that there are certain things that are different about them, obviously. Mm-hmm. There's the element of reading books, which you talked about earlier in the video, where you talked about how the reader is creating the story.
Yeah.
It's going on in here. I mean, it's interesting because we talk about stories as if they exist in the book, but actually they exist.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're building up those walls. The walls are described to us, but we're building them. We're creating them.
Yep.
And it's a very intimate, personal reading experience to bring it all to life yourself.
Yeah.
And manga is very different than that, but the visual side of it also adds something to it as well, which I guess I don't need to like relay the video, but yes, I'm glad you liked that video.
Oh no, I appreciate it, actually, in case some of my viewers missed it. But yeah, no, if you don't mind talking about it, actually, that visual component and what it adds to it, because this is something that might cause some people like me to hesitate and question, what do the visuals add to the storytelling? And it's something that I'm very interested in, actually.
Yeah, there are a few ways that it really adds. One is the power of the page turn. So something can be built up and built up and built up, and you're kind of anticipating it, and then you turn the page and then it all crumbles. And that power of like knowing how to panel it so that you have the perfect payoff with that page turn. Yeah. But then also you can describe the way a person feels, but if you can see it on their face, a lot of times that'll carry so much weight. And there's a lot of times so much power in silence. And I tried to show it I tried to show you a panel in the video, and it was actually from Vinland Saga, the panel that I showed. It was a small Icelandic town or village that had never seen war.
They were celebrating, and
but they built up the glory of war and the glory of being a warrior and the glory of dying in war and sacrificing for your land. And war eventually reached them. And when they realized it, they were all jumping up in the air, celebrating and saying, "It's war." And it was just those two words on the panel, and the whole page was covered in these people celebrating. And then right in the center was the one man who had seen war. And he stood there with his head down and his arms dropped, mourning, because he knew what was actually coming. That's right. And you can describe all that in a book, and it's powerful in a book too. But when you turn the page and you see that scene, and there's little to no words, and you're just looking at people's reactions, it brings a different kind of gravity. And I don't know that one's better than the other. It's just different.
Yeah, I love the way you presented that, because often I feel like, not just on BookTube, but in the world these days, everything is presented as either or, and it's not that way. You can love this form of storytelling. And you can also love this form, and it's okay. It's not like one negates the other somehow. And I really love what you're saying about the visuals. I'm learning as I get older about different kinds of storytelling. My one of the other earlier videos I had was with a student of mine, a former student of mine, I should say, who was in my fantasy novels class and in my composition courses as well. Really brilliant young man. Who's now doing a PhD in philosophy, and he is a video game player, and I'm not. Mostly because I have a feeling that if I started playing video games, I wouldn't do anything else.
It's very addictive.
So I'm not. One thing I didn't understand was just how much great storytelling is going on in video games. So he sat down with me and explained to me, here's how it works. Here are video games that have great stories. And here are some of the elements you can bring in unique to video games that you can't do in a book. And he actually showed me how to play Witcher 3, which was a bit of a comedy because it took me a while even to figure out how to walk straight. That's another story. The brilliant part of the video is really where he's explaining to me how storytelling works in video games. And I have a feeling that manga is going to be something similar, where there are things that this visual medium and brings to the forefront that you can't do in a book, maybe, that you can't do as easily. So there are going to be strengths there. And that is just a beautiful example. I did see that picture and how that one figure is even shaded differently from everyone. So he's isolated, surrounded by people, but isolated visually, but also just emotionally from what's happening all around him. And all that is conveyed in a picture, in a moment, in an instant. So that's pretty cool. And I think I'm gonna be open-minded when I start reading Vinland Saga.
Good. It kicks off in a really cool spot. So I think it'll be hard for you not to be interested at the least.
Oh, cool.
In the beginning. Yeah. It's very, very good.
Awesome. I probably will read the original saga first, just so I can have a kind of okay, just to refresh I've read it a few times, but it's been a few years.
Okay.
So I will read the original. It's very short, actually. It's not a long one. And it's fascinating because
it's called Vinland Saga.
It is called Vinland Saga. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna write it down too, because I think that would actually really add a lot to my reading experience of the other Vinland Saga.
Yep, the original Vinland Saga, and it has some great characters in it. One of the beautiful things about sagas, and picture this in the Middle Ages. There was this tiny island isolated from the rest of Europe where they were recording these amazing stories. Like I'm a medievalist, and it embarrasses me sometimes to admit, but a lot of medieval literature is boring. A lot of medieval literature is very churchy and very boring, and that just happens to be the case, that what was preserved mostly by monks, and they were interested in, those things, administrative things and theological things, which some people love to read, which is great, but it's not edge of your seat storytelling for the most part. But this island, Iceland, they were writing some amazing stories in the 13th century, which no one else was doing anything like it. It's like they were writing novels 500 years before there were novels. Yeah. And they're really great, and from a modern reader's perspective too, because they tend to have an objective narrator, where the narrator isn't telling you what the characters are feeling. It's just recording what they're doing, and you are figuring out the emotional state based on what these characters are doing. So it's a really
that's interesting,
dark style of storytelling in some ways, but just brilliantly done. I don't know if you saw the recent movie The Northman or not. Okay, but it gets a lot of its vibe from the Icelandic sagas.
Interesting.
But yeah, so anyway, just I think it would be a great thing. We'll both read both Vinland Sagas.
Absolutely. That sounds awesome.
Great.
Vinland Saga 2, I think he's like coming to an end, as far as he publishes monthly chapters, but I think he's coming close to an end. So by the time you get to it, you'll probably be able to finish along with the fans, which would be pretty cool.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, I better get to it then. As soon as we're done, I'm going to order Vinland Saga.
Okay, awesome. The first 4, if you buy, I'm sorry, 1 second.
Oh yeah, no problem. Take your time. And my viewers are going to love this. Although I will say, well, Merphy's.
If you do these.
Okay.
I think they're called the deluxe editions or the collector's editions.
Okay.
If you do the first 4 of these, then that's the first arc of the story, which I always say an arc in manga is basically like a book in a series.
Okay.
So you're getting your first complete story. And if you go with the smaller, this is quite large. If you go with the smaller versions, then you'll need to read the first 8.
Okay. So the first 4 books, and that's one of them. There'll be 4 volumes, and there'll be 1 arc.
Yeah, I can just send you a link.
Oh, that might be helpful.
Okay.
But I think I got the concept.
Okay.
So very cool. I'm just so excited about this. So what if I love manga, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this, what else should I read besides Vinland Saga?
Well, I have to recommend One Piece, because
Yes.
I love it. One Piece is phenomenal. And I definitely recommend it. It's a very, very long series, but it has the emotions, it has the nautical life, which I'm all about. The friendships, the loyalty, the really dense, interconnected lore and world building. And it's just, it's really cool. I love it.
Neat.
And
I've noticed that its fans are very passionate, which tells you something important.
Yes. So the way I describe manga fans is they're at 100 all the time. So like they love at 100%. And if you are interested in what they love, they will like can I sit next to you and watch you read it? Like they are so excited for you to love what they love, you know? Yeah. So they will show up, like they'll cheer you on, they'll answer your questions. It's similar to Malazan fans where it's just like, I'm just so excited for you to love what I love. And that's a lot of the manga community. At least that's been my experience with them.
Wow, that sounds great. That sounds great. Yeah. And so One Piece is another one that I hear about a lot. And really there were three. One was Vinland Saga, one was One Piece, and the other one I hear about a lot is Berserk. Have you read that one?
I've not read Berserk. So Berserk is, I think maybe like more grimdark than anything else I've ever tried.
Yeah, I got that impression.
Okay. I've read the first volume, and it's an interesting setup in the first volume, but in that first volume, I could already tell this one's going to be too dark for me, especially because a lot of the stuff that Berserk kind of comes back to, a lot of the darker stuff, with it being in a visual medium, I just don't think it's going to work for me. But I know Daniel Green is currently reading it, loving it. I know Mike from Mike's book reviews loves it. Yeah. So there's definitely some people to be able to discuss it with as well.
From the Fantasy Network is another one.
I don't know that channel, but I will look
him
up
you don't know
now.
Jimmy?
No, I don't.
Yeah, he's been reading Berserk, I believe. Wonderful guy. His channel's called the Fantasy Network.
Okay.
It's a thing on his last name, but he's
gotcha.
Jimmy Nuts.
Well, then maybe I do know him because that does sound familiar.
Yeah. Wonderful guy. And I believe he's been doing Berserk. And he has I think even a friend that he talks with on a regular
basis. He's a Malazan guy.
He has read the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I've watched one of his Malazan videos when I was when I just finished a book and I was trying to figure out one plot thread. I was like, I got to watch a couple of videos and figure out what's going on here. And I stumbled on him, but I am now also subscribed.
Yeah. I've actually, he did the whole Malazan Book of the Fallen, and I was in probably half of those discussions with him, at least half. And I can even claim that I played a little role in nudging him to read the series when I first appeared on his channel. But he's a wonderful fella, and I think you would enjoy it a lot, looking at some of his content, because his cool. journey was really great. And again, I think he would also say the fans were really wonderful and engaging with him. And he had a chance to talk with Steven Erikson too. In fact, Jimmy and I met in Florida, along with AP Canavan, a Critical Dragon guy, who's the advanced reader, and another wonderful YouTuber named Joanna. She is just a wonderful person, also has some great Malazan content. And so we all met along with Alan from the Library of Alexandria, and Steven Erikson. We all met in Florida.
Oh, wow.
The occasion was a conference called ICFA, the International Conference for the Fantastic and the Arts, it's really an academic conference. But AP is an academic and I'm an academic, and we just sort of all, and you get writers there as well. And we all met there and had just an amazing time talking with each other and talking with Steven Erikson. And there's a couple of videos of it, but
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a blast. And that's the other thing, it's really cool to have your community here and to be able to talk to wonderful people like you. And then you realize when you meet some of these people in real life, just how wonderful that friendship is, because it can seem weird for like maybe 30 seconds, like, oh, you're real and you have legs, and it's just kind of like, oh wow, it's a little surreal for a moment, but then it just feels so natural. I think, I don't know if you've experienced that or not.
Yeah, I've gotten to do a couple meetups. Daniel, do you?
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen a couple of your I've seen your video.
Okay. Yeah, he and I have met up a couple times in real life, and it's really cool because, like you said, at first you're just like, okay, how do I navigate this in real life?
Yeah.
But very quickly it's like, no, like this friendship is exactly the same, and actually it gets to be even better. It's really cool.
Very cool. So I forgot what I was talking about.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But you were recommending series to me, and so One Piece. I might try Berserk at some point. I actually don't mind grimdark too much, although I will say so far I've really appreciated grimdark where there's, like with First Law. Okay, you and I both like First Law. the reason I can tolerate that world, which is bleak, and I feel like the characters pretty much end up really alienated in spite of these little attempts at connecting with each other. They usually don't go that well. So there's a lot of alienation and bleakness in that world, but his humor is just so brilliant.
Yes.
That it's actually enjoyable to read about people suffering somehow. There's really tough stuff. I don't refer to Malazan as grimdark myself. A lot of people do. There's a lot of tough stuff there, but there's this beautiful, overwhelming sense of connection that you will see more and more as you continue in the series, between people, between persons, that transcends all of that suffering and pain, and it explains it all. Why are we here? And when you see these gorgeous moments of connection between people, often people who were at each other's throats, and they suddenly connect and they understand each other, it's just fantastic. So there are things that can make these tough things, and I don't know if Berserk has that or not because I haven't read it, but I would imagine that since people love it, there must be something about it that engages people besides the grimness and all that.
Oh yeah. The fandom, I get comments every day to pick up Berserk. And it seems like a big reason why people want me to read it is because they thrive. The fandom thrives on that analysis. They want someone to dig deep into it, or everyone to dig deep into it, because there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of complex character and plot stuff going on. So I think it's a very deep series with a lot of great payoff.
Yeah. Good. Wow. Fantastic. Well, I have so much gratitude for you for coming out and doing this. As I said in the beginning, just wonderful to meet you, but also thank you so much for doing this while your little one is under the weather. And I did hear her voice during your Memories of Ice video.
Oh, did you? I don't even remember. Yeah, she probably walked in.
You just said, "Mommy," and then you had to actually leave and you changed.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And you came back. Okay, it's a day later. I had to take care of things.
Right. Yeah. Life of a mom.
I'm a parent, and though my older daughter's she's like 5 years younger than you. I still think of them as my babies. But I do understand the duties of parents, so I really do appreciate you.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. I had to move our hangout, so I appreciate you being flexible with me as well.
The pleasure is mine, and the honor as well. And thank you so much. I don't feel like I have to tell people to go subscribe to your channel, but I will anyway. Guys, if you don't know about Merphy Napier's channel, I'll have a link to it in the description, and go and check out her stuff. I have to say I was very moved, and I saw some other Malazan readers while watching your review of Memories of Ice. Got a little teary.
Really?
When you were talking about a certain moment.
I know the one
from the book. So
that one still haunts me.
Yeah. So my Malazan, I have a lot of Malazan viewers, so go and check that out, guys. It's a really fantastic reaction to that book. And once again, thank you, Merphy. And thank you everyone who has been watching as well. And until next time.